wherever you may be listening, however you may be listening, whether on 860 AM WNOV or W293 CX 106.5 through the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com radio tab or social media, the Simple Radio app or that TuneIn app. It is the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener radio show live here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We are happy you have joined us today. I am your host, Joy Baird. Next to me is my wife, best friend, gardening partner, co-host,
Holly Baird.
The WisconsinVegetableGardener.com is the destination for all things gardening. We'll talk about how to set up that garden. When we met with staff and management here at WNOV, one of the ladies said, I'm really happy that you guys are going to be on the radio because I bought a house many years ago and there was a garden there. And I've always wanted to garden, but I just don't know where to start. And I believe that's where many people are at. They've got that plot of land in the back, but they don't know where to start. Or there was a garden there 30 years ago, but they don't know what to do.
Right. So it is not complicated, but if you don't know where to start, it just seems like a lot of
overwhelming.
Questions. Yeah, and overwhelming. So the first thing you want to think about is sun. Sun is what plants need to grow. So right now is kind of a good time to take a look at your yard and think, okay, I have this spot here, it gets decent sun, but then you also want to think about trees, shrubs, anything that's going to fill in with leaves at some point once it gets warmer out, and how that could affect that sunny area.
Now, Shauna Coronado was a guest a couple of weeks ago, and she had a little saying. What was it? A partial shade.
Right. If you grow it for roots or fruits, that needs full sun. If you grow it for the greens, then that can take partial shade.
And partial shade, we're talking 4, 5, 6 hours.
Right. 5 to 6 hours of sunlight, and then anything that is full sun is going to be that 8+.
So, a simple way to do this is, let's say it's a sunny weekend. Most people work during the day, so it doesn't really accommodate that way. So on a Saturday morning, Sunday morning, if it's sunny, get up and go in the backyard or the side yard. You can plant anywhere as long as it falls within the ordinance of your municipality. And take a marker, a cup, something, and put in the ground where the sun is at that time, right on there, 7:15 a.m. Go to your stuff, come back at like 10 or 11. Mark it again so you can see the pattern of the sun over the area in which you want to put a garden in. Now, a couple of things about putting a garden in. The most economical way is to do in traditional ground, but it is the most work that goes into it. There's a lot of work that goes into it to get it started.
Right. You also don't know what you're getting yourself into necessarily. If you might have clay soil, you might have toxic soil.
Right, and we'll discuss that.
Right.
Now, the easiest and quickest way to put a garden in, but one of the more expensive ways, is raised beds, because you're purchasing the material, the embraces, or
But it's an investment.
It's an investment.
You buy the right lumber, and you're going to have something that's going to be there for a long time.
Right, and you instantly put soil in it, and you plant right away, weed-free, for the most part, whatever the nature drops in on you, the birds and stuff, and blows in. And containers kind of fall in the middle based on the type of container in which you're going to grow in, determines how much you're wanting to spend or what you're wanting to grow as well.
And then there's the straw bale option, which is essentially a container garden, but kind of a raised bed at the same time.
Both, yeah, it works very well. So we talked about sun. Now, regardless if you choose to grow containers, raised beds, traditional ground garden, straw bale garden, we need to call Digger's Hotline. Because they're going to mark the utilities under the ground in which you're going to plant on top of. If you're going to dig, they need to mark so that you know whether or not you can dig in that area. Now, why would one need to call them if you're installing raised beds or containers or straw bales?
Well, first of all, Digger's Hotline is a free service, and that is provided to you, so you don't have to worry about having to pay any money. And they're available during the week, so you can call them, and they usually come out within 3 business days of when you call them. And the reason why you want to check into it, even if you're going to use containers and or raised beds, if you put a raised bed over a power line and they need to dig in there for that power line, they don't care about your raised bed. So you want to keep that in mind. You want to keep in mind that you're going to put something semi-permanent, almost permanent there, especially if it's a really heavy container or something like that.
Giant grow bag.
And you don't know, it could happen during the middle of August when everything's blooming, and producing vegetables. So you want to make sure you keep that in mind, that there could be a power line or electrical line, or who knows what underneath it.
But it is the law. You have to call them if you're going to do anything. And again, it's free, so it doesn't cost you anything. And they're very accommodating. They'll come out, 72 You call it 72-hour business hours before you intend to dig, and it works very well. So once you've established that, once they've said, okay, you can dig here, you can plant here, wherever it is, side yard, backyard, front yard, wherever, we want to figure out, if we're going to traditional ground garden, we want to figure out what kind of soil we're dealing with, because not all soil in the backyard or in any yard in Milwaukee, southeast Wisconsin, or the world is safe to grow in.
Right. So there could be toxic things. There could be just bad soil. There could be clay soil. So you want to keep that in mind. So you could get a soil test through your local university extension. I know they're pretty cheap. So you want to look into that. An
investment that's worth getting to know whether or not the soil that you're planting in is safe, whether it has high lead levels, toxicity. There was a gas station there, or still some sort 35 years ago, and you moved in 20 years ago. So a peace of mind. So knowing that what you're growing is going to be safe for you to consume, and it won't hurt you.
Now, if that's something you don't want to do, you could always take the risk and plant something small and see what happens. But if you want to,
you're going to do it for real.
If you're going to be real about it, then we would suggest a soil test. And then if that's something you're not interested in, then there's the other options like the raised beds and the containers.
So, okay, we've got all that figured out. Well, all that has checked out. We're good. We're going to do a ground garden. If we're going to do a ground garden, we want to mark off the area. The Diggers Hotline said, okay, it's safe to dig here. You've done a soil test. Soil's good. You don't really want to till it and many people will till religiously, and that's your preference. Our preference is not to till. Our preference is to do the manual labor, go in there with a shovel, garden fork, hard-time garden fork, and loosen the soil up, remove the roots, because roots propagate. If you go in there with a tiller and chop those roots up, then all of those roots many roots propagate from root follicles. And those root follicles now have, instead of one plant, you've got 45 plants, because the tiller tines have chopped them up and distributed them all over the area in which you're going to plant.
Now, if you've tilled for the past 25 years, we're not telling you you're wrong.
No.
It's just something that we've learned about, and we also learned that it disturbs the ecosystem of your soil a lot less if you go in there by hand and turn it over.
But it's a decision that each gardener needs to make for their own particular growing area. So, with that being said, we obviously want to plant things we like. We've talked about this in an earlier episode, but let's not just plant okra because grandma always planted okra and you don't like okra. Let's be smart about this and utilize that space, because not everybody is going to use 1,800 square feet in the backyard. Maybe you only want to dedicate 100, 50, 25 square feet, 16 square feet. You want to make the most out of that you can, and we're going to talk about that next week. We're going to do the math for you to show you how much you can actually pack into small areas. So keep that in mind. Tune in next week for that. But we'll crunch the numbers for you on that one. But we want to utilize the space we have available.
So you want to start kind of small, though. Not necessarily too small, but if you've never gardened before, if you've never grown vegetables before, don't take on something that's super huge. Just think about what you want to grow.
Because you will get frustrated.
Right, you will get frustrated, you will get upset, and then you'll be like, gardening is not for me. So if you start smaller, you're going to have little successes. You're still going to have failures. We still have failures.
You're not a gardener unless you've killed about 1,000 plants.
Right, pretty much. So
some of you are much better gardeners than we are.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're still going to have failures, just like we still have failures. But if you start smaller, you're going to be more encouraged to grow your garden next year.
So once, let's say everything has gone according to plan. You've done this on paper. You've done all this stuff. It's worked out great. You got to prepare for predators and bugs. And one of the easiest ways that we have found to prepare, you want to be proactive instead of reactive. It's hard to put that tomato plant back on the vine when the raccoon has tore it down after it's already happened. So a barrier, as well as a preventative measure such as Bob-X, an animal repellent, is two great additions to ensure what you're growing you're actually going to get.
And if you're not sure about possible pests in the area, ask your neighbor. We don't deal with deer, but there's many people around us who deal with deer. So you kind of have to take that into consideration. We deal with rabbits, and not as much anymore, but we have in the past. So you have to kind of think about what might possibly come, do a little bit of planning ahead.
Right. We surround our gardens with poultry wire. It's we get a 100-foot roll for about $37. It's an investment, but since we have installed that, rabbits don't get in the garden anymore. And it's hard to get green beans or lettuce or broccoli or anything to grow when rabbits continue to eat it down a day after you plant it. So put the investment in, and it will pay for itself years to come after that.
If you're in the Milwaukee or surrounding areas, just tune your radio to 860 AM or FM 106.5. You can also find links on our Facebook pages, The Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener and Home Canning. Our website, thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com, click on the radio tab at the top of the page, then click on the Listen Live button, and you'll have immediately access to our live program. Mobile devices work very well also. Go to your app store and download for free the TuneIn app or the Simple Radio app. Then search WNOV 860, save it to your favorites, and you can have access to our radio show live wherever you're at in the world. Our radio program will also have podcast replay under the radio tab several days following the live broadcast. You can find all of these links in the show notes below. Our show airs 9 to 10 a.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday, March through the end of October. And we want to thank our sponsors because without them, this would not be anywhere possible. You can find all of their links under the radio tab on our website at thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.